The first time I saw my ex-wife in 15 years, she was standing in my driveway, holding a duffel bag, crying. I didn't even recognize her at first. I thought she was some stranger who'd broken down or wandered up the wrong gravel road. I'd just come back from Walmart, arms full of canned soup and cat litter I didn't need. She stood there between my trash bins like some kind of ghost in jeans and a windbreaker, tears streaking her cheeks. I didn't know where else to go, she said. My keys fell out of my hand. I didn't pick them up. I should have slammed the car door. I should have walked away. I should have told her to turn around and disappear again like she did all those years ago. But I just stood there, blinking like an idiot while the wind whipped plastic bags across the lawn. Dana, I finally said, like I needed confirmation that reality was real. She nodded and tried to smile, but her lips trembled too much. I know I shouldn't be here, she whispered. But you need to hear something. It's about the divorce. It's about everything. My hands were shaking, and not just from the cold. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask her why she left me with nothing but a $300 couch and an apartment that echoed like an empty can. I wanted to ask where she went after she vanished. But none of that came out. Instead, I opened the door. Because of course I did. I'm Darren, the guy who gets stepped on and then apologizes for being on the floor. I made her tea, sat her down on the couch that my cat had torn apart. I offered her a blanket, and she held it like a shield. Then she said the sentence that ruined me for the second time in my life. You remember that night you asked me if I was cheating? Of course I remembered. I remember everything I try to forget. I nodded. She exhaled, then stared into the mug like it held a portal to another universe. You were right. But it wasn't just once. It wasn't even just one person. And that's not the worst part. My mouth went dry. The worst part, she whispered, is that someone close to you knew. And they let it happen. I sat there in silence while my whole body went numb. The tea grew cold. The wind howled outside. And I realized, 15 years ago, I lost a wife. But now, I was about to lose everything else I thought I still trusted. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mouth opened, but the words just didn't come. It was like my brain was buffering. All I could hear was the refrigerator humming behind us and the faint clicking of her fingernails against the mug. She always did that when she was nervous. And I hated that I remembered that. I hated that somewhere, buried under 15 years of silence and bitterness and therapy sessions I never finished, there were still fragments of her that lived in my head. Rent-free. Who? I finally croaked, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. Who knew? She didn't answer right away. She looked at me like she was calculating whether I deserved the full truth or just the digestible version. Dana was always good at controlling information. It's what made our marriage feel like a magic trick. One where I was always the idiot clapping at the wrong time, thinking the rabbit was real. It was Owen, she said. And just like that, it felt like the entire room tilted sideways. Owen, my best friend since 8th grade. The guy who helped me move after the divorce. The guy who drove me to the courthouse and waited outside with a Snickers bar and a pack of tissues. The guy who once punched a dude in college for calling me pathetic. That Owen. I stood up too fast. My knees cracked, and I nearly tripped over the coffee table. You're lying, I said, even though I knew she wasn't. I think I just needed to say something that would slow down the mental landslide happening in my skull. She didn't argue. She just sat there and pulled something from her coat pocket. A photo. A printed photo, like it was 2006 all over again. She handed it to me with this look on her face like she was handing over a loaded gun and daring me to use it. It was a picture of her and Owen in a hotel lobby, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder, date stamped. 2 weeks before she left me. I felt something cold bloom in my chest. Not anger, not sadness, something heavier. Like betrayal had evolved into a new species entirely, one I wasn't prepared to meet. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered, but I could barely hear her over the static in my own head. It started after one of our fights. He came over to check on me. You were gone for the weekend, and... Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. She did. I sat back down. Not because I wanted to, but because my legs stopped cooperating. My hands were clenched so hard my fingernails left little red crescents in my palms. All this time, I said slowly, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was paranoid. You made me feel like I was losing it. I know, she said, and her voice cracked. That's why I'm here. But that didn't make it better. That made it worse. Because if she was just here to confess, to offload her guilt, to feel better about what she did, then she should have stayed gone. She should have stayed a ghost in an old contact list. But she didn't. And I hadn't even asked the most important question yet. Why now? She didn't answer me right away. Instead, she pulled her knees up onto the couch like she used to when she was upset, when we still lived together, before everything went to hell. I hated that she still remembered how to fold herself into this space like she belonged here. Like time hadn't passed. Like she still had the right. I finally asked it, louder this time, cutting through the buzzing in my head. Why now, Dana? Why 15 years later? Why not 5 years ago? Or 10? Why show up at my house out of nowhere with a duffel bag and a bombshell? She didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. Because Owen died, she said. I blinked. What? She finally looked up. 3 weeks ago. Car crash. He was driving to his cabin in Vermont. Hit black ice. They said he died on impact. I just stared at her. I didn't know whether to feel sad or nauseous or both. My brain was trying to reconcile the idea of Owen, the guy who toasted me at my wedding, who once dared me to eat raw hot dogs in college, who helped me pick out the ring, with someone who died without ever telling me the truth. And that's when you decided to confess? I said, my voice colder than I expected. When your co-conspirator suddenly wasn't around to deny it. She flinched. It's not like that, isn't it? She took a breath, but her hands were trembling now, and I could see she was fighting back whatever storm was building inside her. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask her if she had any idea what those years were like for me, how I stopped trusting people, how I haven't been in a real relationship since, how every time I tried to get close to someone, I backed out because the voice in my head said, don't be stupid. They'll leave. They'll lie, just like she did. But instead, I asked something worse, something I didn't even plan to ask. Did you love him? Her mouth opened slightly, and I saw the hesitation, like the truth was there, bubbling on the surface, but she still wanted to spare me. I didn't mean to, she said finally. And that answer hurt worse than a yes. She reached into the duffel bag and pulled out a worn leather notebook. My notebook, one I thought I'd lost in the move after the divorce. I recognized the scuffed corners immediately. Inside that book were my sketches, notes, little journal entries I never wanted anyone to read. Things I'd scribbled late at night when I couldn't sleep. Thoughts about her fights, about how I wished I could be better, stronger, more than what I was. You left it behind, she said quietly. Owen kept it. I didn't even know he had it until I found it after he died. It was in a box labeled New Hampshire. She handed it to me, and I hesitated before taking it. I read some of it, she admitted. I shouldn't have. But it broke me, Darren. The way you talked about me, even when I didn't deserve it. Even when I was lying to you. I flipped through the pages. My own handwriting stared back at me, and I felt something twist in my gut. I wasn't angry about the invasion of privacy. I was angry because even now, after everything, some part of me still wanted her to understand what she ruined. You think showing up here and returning a notebook erases what you did? I said. No, she whispered. But I'm not here to erase anything. She leaned forward, and what she said next didn't make any sense at first. It was like a puzzle with missing pieces. There's more, she said. It wasn't just you I lied to. Owen lied too. To both of us. I narrowed my eyes. What are you talking about? She looked terrified now. There's something I never told you, she said slowly. Because I didn't know myself. Not until now. Darren, the affair wasn't the end of it. I held my breath. She stared right at me and said, you have a daughter. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. I actually leaned forward like the extra inch between us would somehow clarify what she'd just said. What did you say? I asked, even though I knew exactly what I'd heard. It just didn't make sense. It couldn't. You have a daughter, Dana repeated, and this time she didn't stutter. I laughed. I laughed, like a man who just got told his entire reality was a prank show. No, I don't, I said, shaking my head. You're thinking of someone else. Maybe you're confused or, I don't know, you lost track of which lie you're telling. I'm not lying, she said. I didn't even know until last year. You're telling me you gave birth to a child and forgot to mention it. She's not mine, Darren. I froze. She's not biologically mine. I didn't carry her. I didn't even know she existed until Owen got sick. But she's your daughter. And she's real. I was blinking so much my eyes started to sting. You're not making any sense. Dana took a deep breath, bracing herself like she was about to jump off a cliff. There was another woman. Her name was Elise. She worked with Owen. I didn't know about her until years after our divorce. She died of cancer last spring. She left behind a letter and a girl. A 17-year-old girl named May. I said nothing. I couldn't even remember how to breathe. She wrote that May was Owen's daughter. But the letter said something else. Something Owen never told me. That during the affair, when he was with her and you and I were still married, he suspected the child wasn't his. She reached into her bag again. Another envelope. This one creased and yellowed. She handed it to me like it weighed 10 pounds. I had May take a test after Owen died, she whispered, just to put it to rest. I didn't expect anything. I thought she'd be his, and that would be it. I didn't want to open the envelope. I didn't want this to be happening. But my hands moved before my brain gave them permission. Inside was a printed DNA result, legal letterhead, barcode, all of it official and clinical. I scanned down to the bolded text. Probability of paternity, 9,987%. And right there, beneath it, tested alleged father, Darren M. Ellis. I felt my lungs seize. How? I started, but no words followed. Dana looked like she was going to cry again, but she didn't. She just nodded like she'd expected this reaction. Elise listed you as the father in her journal. I found it when May gave me the letter. She wrote about you. About the night she met you at that gallery opening. Do you remember it? I didn't want to remember. But suddenly, painfully, I did. We had been fighting. One of the worst ones. Dana had accused me of being emotionally distant. She stormed out and said she was staying at her sister's for the weekend. That night, I went to the art show alone. I met a woman who complimented my laugh. No one ever complimented my laugh. And we talked for hours over wine and fluorescent paintings. I never got her number. I never even knew her last name. I told myself it was a nothing night. Just conversation. Maybe a kiss in the parking lot. But clearly, it wasn't just that. You're lying, I said again, but my voice cracked. This can't be real. I thought you deserved to know, she whispered. May's been living with her aunt, but she's scared. She's smart, Darren. She reads medical journals for fun. She thinks you're some deadbeat who vanished before she was born. My head was spinning. She thinks I knew about her? Dana nodded. Because Owen never corrected that story. He told Elise you wanted nothing to do with her. That you were unstable. That you bailed. I stood up. I didn't even remember doing it, but I was standing, shaking, like the floor might cave in under me. So let me get this straight. Not only did you cheat on me with my best friend, but you both hid the fact that I have a child? She's almost 18, Dana said softly. She thinks her whole life was built on a lie. And I guess it kind of was. I stared down at the envelope in my hand, then at the woman who had unraveled my life once, and now had returned to do it all over again. I don't even know what to do with this, I whispered. Dana looked up at me with something like guilt, or maybe relief. You should meet her, she said. She doesn't know I'm here, but she's curious. I think she needs you. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead, I just collapsed back into the couch, buried my face in my hands, and said the only thing I could manage. I don't even know how to be myself, let alone someone's father. I didn't leave the house for 2 days. I didn't shave. I didn't answer calls. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat in silence, replaying every moment from 15 years ago through a lens I didn't ask for. Every fight, every word Dana said, every weird glance between Owen and me. I used to think I was paranoid back then. I thought my insecurities were the reason she left. Turns out, my gut was smarter than I gave it credit for. And now I had a daughter. A daughter who thought I was trash. A daughter I never met. A daughter whose entire life started on the worst kind of lie. I kept looking at the DNA report like maybe the numbers would change if I stared long enough. Like maybe the decimals would shift and spell out just kidding. But they never did. Every time I blinked, those numbers were still there, bold and absolute. 9,987%. On the third morning, I got in the car. I didn't shower. I didn't know what I was doing. My hands moved on their own, turning the keys, adjusting the mirrors. I drove to the park by the lake where I used to take long walks after the divorce. Back then, I came here to scream into the wind, to cry where no one could hear me. It felt like the only place I could fall apart without judgment. Now I sat in the same parking lot, staring at the same rusted bench, wondering how it was possible that I had created life and never knew. I thought about May, what she looked like, what kind of music she liked, Whether she got my clumsiness or Dana's blunt sarcasm. Whether she hated math the way I did, or if she was one of those super genius kids who solved puzzles upside down for fun. I didn't know her birthday, her favorite color, whether she had braces or allergies or wore too much eyeliner. I didn't even know her voice. And then I did something I swore I wouldn't. I searched her online. Dana had given me her full name before she left that night. May Callahan. I found a profile. It was private, of course, but the profile photo hit me like a punch in the gut. She was standing on a dock, holding a camera, smiling at someone off-screen. Her hair was dark and curly like mine. Her posture was Dana's, tight shoulders, slight tilt to the left. But her eyes, those were mine. There was no denying it. She looked like me the way the moon looks like the ocean, distant but undeniably connected. I stared at that photo for 20 minutes. I wanted to message her. I wanted to say, I didn't know. I would have been there. I swear. But what good is that now? What does that change? Just as I was about to close the tab, another image caught my eye. A tagged photo, public. She was sitting in a hospital room, holding a clipboard. Behind her, machines. Monitors. A man in a gown, smiling weakly at the camera. The caption read, "Still the strongest man I know. We're not done fighting yet." I clicked on the name of the hospital and the tags. It was only 2 hours away. And suddenly, my heart started racing. She wasn't just somewhere in the world. She was here, nearby, living through something, hurting, fighting, alone. I messaged Dana. Why is May in a hospital? What's going on? She replied almost instantly. She doesn't want anyone to know, especially not you. But yes, she's sick. She's been in and out of treatment. Leukemia, diagnosed a year ago. It's been rough. She's responding to the new protocol, but it's complicated. I stared at the screen like it was on fire. Not only did I have a daughter, but I might lose her before I ever get to hear her say a single word to me. And worst of all, she'd go to her grave thinking I walked away. That's when I made the decision. The one I couldn't take back. I was going to meet her. I didn't care what Dana said. I didn't care if she hated me. I didn't care if she screamed at me, cursed at me, told me to disappear. I had spent 15 years letting silence swallow my spine. I wasn't going to be absent anymore. I was done being the man people lied to and walked over. She had every right to hate me, but she also had the right to know the truth. I didn't tell Dana I was going. I didn't ask permission. I just got in the car the next morning and drove to the hospital. I didn't have a plan, just her name and a hollow in my chest that had grown wider by the hour. The closer I got, the more everything inside me itched to turn back. What if I walked in and made things worse? What if she screamed or cried, or, worse, didn't react at all? But you can't undo blood. And even if I was 15 years late, I still had a right to look my daughter in the eye and tell her I existed. The lobby was too bright, too clean. It smelled like plastic and antiseptic. A nurse behind the desk gave me the kind of professional smile they teach in training, kind, distant, and exhausted. I gave her May's name. She hesitated, clearly debating whether to check her system or call security. I'm her. I paused. What the hell was I? Stranger? Father? Ghost? I'm her biological father, I said, more like a confession than a fact. That got her attention. She tapped at her keyboard for a moment, then looked up at me cautiously. She's in the adolescent oncology wing, but I don't think she's expecting visitors. Are you on her list? I shook my head. I just want to see her. I'll leave if she says no. I just want one moment. She stared at me like she'd seen this exact scene play out before. Regretful fathers, broken timelines, overdue reckonings. Eventually, she nodded. Room 418. Take the elevator. You'll need to check in with the nurse at the station first. My hands were already sweating as I pressed the elevator button. The ride up felt eternal. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, loud and offbeat. Every second that passed, I imagined her face when she saw me, and each version was worse than the last. At the nurse's station, I gave my name again. The woman there raised an eyebrow, but didn't stop me. She nodded toward a closed door at the end of the hall. She's awake. You've got 10 minutes. Don't push it. I stood outside the door for another 30 seconds before knocking, 3 soft taps. I don't even know why I knocked. What was I expecting her to say? Come in, long-lost father who abandoned me. But a quiet voice did answer. Yeah? I pushed the door open. The room was dim, curtains half drawn. A small TV played some muted sitcom in the background. She was lying in bed, reading a paperback with a highlighter in her hand. And when she looked up at me, her eyes narrowed instantly. She didn't recognize me. Of course she didn't. "Hi," I said, trying to smile, but I felt like my face was made of stone. "I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Darren. I think your mom might have mentioned me." She tilted her head slowly, skeptical, guarded, smart. "No offense," she said, voice hoarse but sharp, "but I have no idea who you are." I took a slow breath. "I'm your father." She stared, blinked, then let out a small, bitter laugh. "Wow, that's original. Did Dana send you?" "No," I said. "She doesn't even know I'm here. I found out last week. About Elise. About you." May looked away, jaw tight. "She said you didn't care. That you knew and just left." "I didn't know," I said, my voice cracking. "Not until Dana showed me the DNA results. I swear to you, May, I would have never walked away. I didn't even know Elise's last name. We met once. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know you existed." Her arms folded across her chest. "So why now? Because you feel guilty?" "No, because you deserve the truth, even if you hate me." There was a long silence. She looked at me like she was trying to figure out whether I was lying or just pathetic. Maybe both. And she wasn't wrong. I felt like an intruder in a life I didn't earn. "Do you even know anything about me?" she asked finally. I hesitated. "I know you like photography. I know you're in treatment. I know you have your mom's shoulders and my unfortunate eyebrows." That got a tiny twitch at the corner of her mouth. "I also know I missed 17 years of your life, and I'll never be able to fix that. But I want to know everything now, if you'll let me." She didn't speak for a while. Then she leaned back against the pillows and said, "Start with your biggest regret. Go." That surprised me. "What?" "I ask everyone that," she said flatly. "It's easier than small talk." I swallowed hard. "My biggest regret," I said slowly, "is not asking more questions when things didn't feel right. I let people lie to me because I was afraid of the answers. I lived quietly, and then I lost everything because of it." She nodded like she understood more than a kid should. "I don't hate you," she said quietly. "I don't know you well enough to hate you, but I don't trust you either." "I'll earn it," I said instantly, maybe too fast. May looked at me again, really looked, and I felt something shift. Small, but real. "You've got 9 minutes left," she said. "Might as well keep talking." So I did, and for the first time in over a decade, I felt like someone might actually listen. I stayed longer than 10 minutes. No one stopped me. Maybe they saw the way May was leaning forward now, listening. Not exactly welcoming, but no longer dismissive. She asked questions like she was digging through rubble, slow, methodical, expecting broken pieces. She wanted to know if I ever tried to find Elise, if I remembered that night at the gallery, if I had anyone else in my life now. When I told her no, no wife, no kids, no one, she didn't look surprised. Just nodded like that made sense. Like she'd already assumed I was the kind of man who lived in silence. "I Googled you last year," she said casually, flipping through her notebook. "When I first found out your name, I thought maybe you were dead, or famous, or in jail. You weren't in any of those categories. Just invisible." "That checks out," I muttered. "I've kind of made a career out of disappearing." "Why?" I didn't have a neat answer. I think I got too used to not being picked by anyone. So eventually I stopped showing up. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "That's kind of sad." "Yeah," I said. "It really is." May asked about Owen next, what he was like as a younger man, whether he was always so controlling. I could hear the bitterness in her voice, even when she tried to bury it. It surprised me. She spoke about Owen like someone who'd been living in his shadow, not as a daughter who adored her father. "He didn't let me go to art school," she said. "Said it was a waste of talent. Wanted me to go into science. Said it was the Ellis way." Whatever the hell that meant. My stomach flipped. "He told you that?" She nodded. "Said it was your tradition. Your family was full of researchers and chemists or something." That was a lie. A blatant, unnecessary lie. "My dad was a bartender," I said. "My mom ran a floral shop. I barely passed high school biology." May stared at me, then gave a quiet, bitter chuckle. "Of course. Figures." And just like that, something clicked. Not just for her, but for me. Why had Owen claimed I wanted nothing to do with May? Why build this fictional legacy, the Ellis way, when he knew it wasn't true? Why erase me, then replace me with a version of me he could manipulate? Dana had said Owen lied to both of us. But it wasn't just lies. It was architecture. He didn't just cover up the truth. He restructured it, rebuilt our lives with fake beams and forged bricks until none of us could recognize the rooms we were living in. He didn't just cheat on you, May said suddenly, reading my face. He owned you, didn't he? I looked at her, startled. She tapped her pen against the blanket. My mom said something once. When she was high on meds, right before she died. She said Owen had a way of making people feel like they owed him everything, and that if they forgot, he'd remind them. I swallowed hard. He manipulated everyone around him. I think he convinced Dana she was nothing without him. He made me doubt everything I felt. I thought he was my friend, May. I trusted him more than my own instincts. She was quiet for a long time after that. Then she flipped to a fresh page in her notebook. I have a list, she said. Things I want to do before my next round of treatment. Some of them are stupid. Some are complicated. I was going to do them alone. I stayed still. I didn't want to interrupt the moment. She turned the notebook around and pushed it toward me. Number 4 is find out who I am, not who people told me I was. You're part of that, apparently. So, I looked at her, unsure. So, what do you want from me? She shrugged. I want you to come with me. Not forever. Not even far. Just the next one. What is it? Number 5. Visit the house where you grew up. See if anything makes sense. My throat tightened. That house was torn down years ago. Then take me to where it stood. I hesitated. May, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't want to force. You're not forcing, she cut in. I'm asking. I want to see where the version of me that could have existed might have lived. That was the moment I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. She didn't want pity. She didn't want me to fix anything. She just wanted truth. And even if I was a fractured, faded version of a father, I could at least give her that. So I nodded. When? Tomorrow. I reached for the notebook and gently closed it. Okay, I said. Tomorrow. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something I didn't expect. Hope. The next morning, we left before the sun was up. May wore a hoodie 3 sizes too big and had earbuds in most of the ride, but I didn't take it personally. We drove in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who have run out of lies and excuses and are finally just real. Every so often she'd glance at me through the window reflection, and I'd pretend not to notice. I didn't want to spook it, that slow, quiet rebuilding of something we never had to begin with. The town I grew up in was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just seeing it differently. We stopped at the gas station that used to be a video rental store. The diner I'd eaten pancakes in every Saturday was now a bank. Even the street where my childhood home once stood had changed. New houses, fresh pavement, no trace of the rusted porch swing or the tree I carved my initials into. But May didn't seem disappointed. In fact, she stood on the sidewalk for a long time, just breathing it in. This is where you used to ride your bike? She asked, kicking at a leaf. Yeah, right down this hill. Crashed into Mrs. Valeni's mailbox more than once. She smiled. I bet she loved that. She hated my guts. We walked around the block a few times. She took pictures of old fences, broken gutters, a mailbox shaped like a goose. These are the kinds of places that hold stories, she said, more to herself than to me. Not the shiny ones. The ones with rust and weeds and cracks. That's where real things live. I stopped and looked at her. Not just looked, saw her. May. This girl who came into my life through chaos, who had every reason to slam the door shut and didn't. She had my eyes. Dana's stubbornness. Owen's fire, but none of his manipulation. I'm really proud of you, I said. She didn't respond right away. Then she said, I think I want to believe you. And that was enough. On the way back, we stopped at a flea market on a whim. She bought a broken Polaroid camera for $5. I told her it probably wouldn't work. She grinned and said, doesn't have to. It just needs to be mine. Back at the hospital, I helped her carry her things in. A nurse smiled at me like I was already part of the routine. Dana was waiting by the elevator, arms crossed, clearly surprised I was still around. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't need to. May turned to me before heading back to her room. I don't know how much time I have, she said. I don't either, I replied, voice tight. But whatever you need from me, you have it. She nodded. Good. Because I've got more list items. Some are going to be weird. One of them involves a cemetery and a fake seance. I laughed, actually laughed. I've done worse. She rolled her eyes. I'll text you. And then, just as the elevator doors started to close, She looked back and said something that will stay with me forever. Hey, Darren, you can stop disappearing now. The doors closed. I stood there for a long time. I didn't cry. Not this time. I just stood still, rooted, present. Finally, after all these years, I was here.